Hello and welcome to tonight's live class from A Little Peace and Quiet. My name's Ollie Doyle and I want to start by acknowledging that I'm broadcasting live tonight from the traditional lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to any Aboriginal people listening tonight. So I want to start tonight by outlining what we're going to be talking about, and we'll continue from there. My topic for tonight is about why thinking is killing us as a species. It's a harsh thing to say straight up, but I'm going to talk through it and I'm going to back it up. So just excuse me for a moment, I'm just making sure this is broadcasting properly, and at this point I'd like to say that if the sound drops out on you at some stage, please just bear with me, it will come back. So why do I say that thinking is killing us? As human beings, we've relied on thinking for far too long. We've been caught up in thought as a species, we've been lost in it, and unfortunately, it's got to a point where it's starting to take over, it's starting to ruin our lives. Thinking causes wars, it causes arguments between people, and most importantly, it causes us to lose the present moment, which is when life is actually happening. And there are three things that I want to talk about tonight in terms of thinking. The first is that I want to help you to shift from thinking to experience. So from a thought-based life to an experience-based life. I want to talk about and practice the end of worry, and I want to show you how being instantaneously focused, as I call it, will make a huge shift, a revolutionary shift in your relationships with other people. So for most of human history, we've relied on thinking. And I want to distinguish thinking from thought before we get too far in. Thought is something that arises in our consciousness. It's something that happens, it's something that's useful, and it's something that we don't need to get rid of or change. I define thinking as the act of playing with thoughts, the act of dwelling on thoughts, the act of using thoughts to project an imagined future, to dwell on an imagined past, and to cause us worry, stress, and anxiety. Now, why does this happen? Well, thinking is an analytical process. So thinking is always about the past, and it's always about projecting into the future. The mind has a really simple goal for us, or seemingly simple goal, which is learn from the past and make sure those mistakes never happen again. And then change those things in the future so that I can be happy. So happiness is always projected into the future. This means that as humans, we're always looking for happiness through something extra, through something else. We need something to be added to our present moment experience in order to be happy, in order to find peace and joy. Now, before we get too far in, I want to check out if that's true or not. So I invite you now to take your attention inside the body and just feel yourself breathing. Feel what it's like as the lungs expand and as the lungs contract. Feel what it's like as the shoulders rise and fall. Feel what it's like as your chest expands and contracts. And just for this instant, just stop thinking. Of course, thought may arise, but instead of playing with it, I invite you to just watch it and let it come and go. And this is where breath awareness can be really helpful. So feel the breath coming and going, and just allow yourself to watch thought and be fully present here and now. Fully present just means aware. It just means watching. It just means observing your present moment experience. And when thought takes over again and it becomes thinking, when you get lost in it, then simply come back to the breath, shift your attention back into the present moment. Okay, so in that moment of presence, even if it was for a second, did you notice the sense of peace, the sense of calm that's there in the background? Now, this doesn't mean that your mind was peaceful and calm or that your emotions were. It just means that peace and quiet and happiness is there in the background. The mind is always turbulent. It's always busy until we learn to sit and breathe, and then it calms down somewhat. But there's always a busyness and activity to it, and that's fine. There's no need to change that or alter it in any way. But when we shift out of thinking and into experiencing our life, then things slow down and things get calm regardless of what the mind is doing. And that's a pretty revolutionary thing for human beings, to be able to be calm, peaceful and happy regardless of what your mind is doing, regardless of what thoughts are passing through right now. It's in the same way that you can be peaceful and happy in your house regardless of whether the birds flying past the window are pretty or ugly or noisy. If your attention's inside and you're enjoying what you're doing, then the birds don't matter. And thoughts are the same. We can still look outside and say, oh, that's an interesting bird, but we don't have to. We don't have to go out and try and play with them. We don't have to get the shotgun out and try and attack them. We can just stay focused in the inner world and just allow those things to come and go. So if you get one thing out of tonight, I hope it's making the shift from thinking, from basing your life around thinking, to basing your life around direct experience of life. And we've just done that with breathing. Because all of us know that we breathe. We're aware that we're breathing. But it's rare that people actually fully experience it. It's rare that people actually notice what it feels like to breathe. In the same way, we all know that thoughts arise and we all get lost in them. But it's very rare for people to actually spend time watching them. Eckhart Tolle, who regular listeners will know is one of my favorite authors about meditation or mindfulness, he talks about this practice as watching the thinker. And if you tuned in for last week's focus on the thinker, you'll know what I'm talking about. We're just watching that part of us that's generating thought. We're just watching the thoughts coming and going. And that's it. There's nothing more complicated to it. So what happens then? Well, two things happen that I want to talk about tonight. And then I want to dive into a deeper practice of moving from thinking to experience. So about a 7 or 8 minute practice. So the first thing that happens is what I call the end of worry. And that's for a really simple reason. Worry is always connected to a thought, and that thought is always about the future. Always. We might say, well, sometimes it's about what happened in the past, but if what happened in the past is finished and done, is never going to happen again, we might have some angst or some anger, but worry is not there. Worry comes from projecting that past event into the future, or projecting my current circumstances into the future. I will never have a girlfriend. I will always be like this. We project, we start telling stories, and we get caught up in images about this imagined future. So when you were focused on the breath, where was that future? Even now, where is that future? Where is it? Does it actually exist in a way that you can point to? Is there a future you can point to? We can say, well, the future will happen. But I'm not talking about the passage of time, the movement of the planets. What I'm talking about is the image in your head that your mind tells you is what will happen in my life tomorrow, or what will happen in my life in next week or in 10 years' time. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about the future. It only exists in the mind. It exists nowhere else in the world. And what we call future is really just desire. And I don't quote much Buddhism, but the Buddhists were really onto something when they coined the word desire as one of the big problems for humans. All those thoughts about the future say something about what I want to happen. Even if the story, the image is about what I don't want to happen, it's still driven by that desire to avoid that. So the Buddhists talk about attachment and they talk about avoidance. I'm attached to this outcome and I want to avoid that outcome. Now, a couple of things happen when we do that. Obviously, worry is one of them. But the other thing that happens is we lose the present moment. And there's a Zen saying, a moment's absence, a dead man. Now, that's a little gender biased, but it's probably from the 1500s or something. But a moment's absence, a dead man. That's how seriously they take it. As soon as you're lost in your head, you're not participating in life. You're not experiencing life. You've died and gone to another world in which there's a scary future happening or there's a happy future happening. So we lose the present moment, or it loses us. It's always here. But it loses us when we get lost in thought. So that shift from thinking to experience means the end of worry. It means that we can connect directly with our experience of this moment as it is now. And as this series continues, this series which I call 6 Weeks of Peace, we're just in week 1. As this series continues, we're going to explore some of the ways that we can not only connect with this moment, but allow it to be exactly as it is. But it's enough for now to know that when we learn to focus our attention in this instant, then worry ends. And the other thing that we avoid then, apart from losing the present moment, is that when we get to that tomorrow that we've imagined, or when we get to that event that we've imagined and built up and worried about, if we've been focused in the present moment, then we can respond to that event with a freshness. We can respond to it as it's happening. We can come to it with beginner's mind, which just means responding in the moment rather than responding in some pre-planned way that I thought about earlier. Here's one I prepared earlier. It means that we step out of the stress, the worry, and the mental contamination that comes from overthinking, from all that pre-planning, from all that pre-worry, all that build-up. And we can just respond to whatever happens now. Because I don't know if you've noticed, and if you haven't, then I encourage you to test what I'm saying in your real life experience. But for me, what my mind projects as what will happen tomorrow never ever happens exactly as it was projected. Never. Some parts might be correct, but it's never ever completely right. It's a bit like the weather report or the predictions about the finance market. People can tell you afterwards why what they predicted didn't happen, but they can't predict exactly what's going to happen. Our mind's the same. And incidentally, slight diversion, but if you watch the news and you listen to the language, you will notice that everything is past and future. And in some ways it has to be. But everything is, this happened today. And experts predict that in 5 years' time, this will lead to blah, blah, blah. Now, it doesn't matter if those same experts were completely wrong 5 years ago. What's important is that we've got a story that we can hang on to. We've got something to worry about, and we don't have to look inside. So when we shift to experience, we start to look inside. We start to also look around us with fresh eyes each moment. Now, the other thing that happens that's really amazing is that our relationships completely change, and we can live in this moment, in this instant. So if you can sit with a friend, with a parent, with a sibling, and just breathe and just look at them with openness, with curiosity, with interest, then that's true love. And if you can do that, your relationships will change in revolutionary ways. And there's a couple of simple reasons for this. Every single person that we have a history with, that we have a past with, that we have an old relationship with, when we meet with that person, we bring that past to the table, which means in our head we have a story that says, this is what this person is like. This is what my mother is like. And you can listen to this when you're talking with people you know about your family, for example. You're talking to someone at work and you say, oh, my mother is really pedantic about blah. Or my father gets really angry when blah. And when we meet with those people who we share a lot of past with, then we can't help but bring that story to the table if we're lost in thought. Which means that when we meet with those people, we're already looking for information that is going to confirm our existing story. Because as you know, as you will have experienced, the mind is very threatened, very quickly threatened, when something disagrees with its story of the world. When we have a strong opinion that this is the way things are, if something sits outside of that, the mind gets really uncomfortable. Even if the new possibility is an improvement, what most people are most worried about is having to admit that their mind got it wrong. Minds do not like admitting that they were wrong. So when we interact with people, then we're carrying this story, we're carrying this burden, and we're carrying all this emotional baggage because of that. And when I was a bit younger, I subscribed to the belief that in order to have good relationships with family members, that I needed to resolve everything that had happened in the past. And when I say everything that happened in the past, what I mean is my story about what happened in the past, my memory of what happened in the past. Now, in actual fact, that was a perspective, it was an opinion. And luckily what I learned was, what I really needed was to shift my attention into the present moment. That when I did that, and as I continue to grow into that, then relationships change quite naturally and the past drops away. I can respond to you as you are now, and I don't need to worry about what happened 5 or 10 years ago. All of a sudden that loses its importance because I'm mostly interested in experiencing life right now. So our relationships start to change on a few levels. One is we stop bringing the past in. We stop bringing the future in, which causes a lot of stress in relationships. Because if I'm worried about the future, if I'm worried about what's going to happen to you in the future, especially if you're my child or you're close to me, that's going to contaminate the way I interact with you right now. If I'm lost in my own head, then I can't pay attention to you now, really. And if I'm thinking too much, if I'm caught up in all of this mental clutter, then I can't even see you, I can't even hear you now. I'm too busy with my own stories. I'm not even interacting with you on a real level. Now, it's hard to practice this stuff with people first up because people are lost in their own stories and they're good at sucking us into that process. They're good at pulling us into their stories and triggering our own stories. So instead, I want to do a practice where we're going to fully experience our surroundings. We're going to fully experience what's around us right now in this instant. So close your eyes for a second if you can. And just feel your surroundings as bodily sensations. So feel the air around you. Feel the chair you're sitting in, the floor, the table, the couch, whatever's in contact with your body right now. Just really notice what it feels like. Notice the clothing against your skin. And take a moment to just feel yourself breathing at the same time. And really experience one breath. Completely notice what it feels like to breathe. And as you open your eyes, just have a look around the room or your surroundings right now and notice what you can see. But see if you can look without judging, without thinking about what's there, but just noticing. So you may notice the position of things around you, the colours, the shapes, the light, the shade. And if you find it helpful, use the breath to keep your attention in the present moment, to keep bringing you back to this instant in time. And just keep looking, breathing, and feeling the body. Feeling the body. So notice what sensations are arising in your fingertips right now. Notice what's happening in your feet, in your arms and legs. Now the temptation is to think about those things, to label them. I feel this in my fingers, I feel this in my feet. But instead just feel it. Don't worry about what to call it. Don't worry about whether it's good or bad or right or wrong. But just feel it. Just live this moment through experience. And as you experience this instant, just allow yourself to continue to drop into the body with each breath and to sharpen your focus down to this instant in time. The mind will keep trying to pull you away to past and future, or even to project the next instant, the next breath, the last one. So you might find it useful to follow the in-breath, to follow the out-breath, and at the end of the out-breath to just check each time where your attention is. And if you find that your attention is somewhere other than right here now, intensely present, intensely alive in this moment, then just shift. And to shift, all we need to do is feel the breath once more, feel it more intensely. Just feel this breath. And as you sink into that, see if you can feel the breath while sensing your body as a whole, feeling your entire body at once. So breathe, feel your entire body, and you may find it useful to close your eyes and just feel where your body is in space right now. Notice the shape of it, the sensations of it. See if you can open your eyes again and stay with that. Stay focused. When you can sit with another human being and still do this practice, life becomes pretty incredible. People start to comment and say how calm and peaceful you are. People will want to be around you. But most importantly, you will enjoy every interaction with someone else, even if you don't agree with their behaviour. And you can still respond to that in a way that's calm, peaceful, and useful in this world. Now, tomorrow I'm sending a new class out, and if you want to sign up for free classes every weekday, there's a little subscribe link just above the player in the post here. But in tomorrow's class, I'll be talking about how important this change is that we're a part of, how important this shift from thinking to experience is for the human race and for the entire world. And in spite of that importance, what we realize when we're truly present is that nothing really matters. Nothing is ultimately important. But for us as a species, our best hope of changing the world is by millions of us, starting with you, starting with me, shifting from this conflictual, thought-based experience to a life of joy, of curiosity, and of direct experience in the present moment. Our half an hour has come to the end, all too quickly. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's class and that you find it useful. If you did and you're not signed up for podcasts, I encourage you to subscribe for free, and you'll get one every day, and you can be a part of this incredible change that's happening in the world right now as we shift, as we evolve as a species from a bunch of thinkers to a bunch of direct experiences, peaceful, calm, quiet. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, enjoy your adventures in the present moment. Hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.